Hello dear friends, I'm Samuel Moore and welcome to my Study with Samuel video series. Today, I'd like to look at the flamenco palo Tientos. Tientos is a slow-tempo flamenco form with 4 beats to the bar. You can play tientos in a number of keys, but most commonly it's played in the por medio flamenco key, which basically means A Phrygian. In this sense, from the point of view of Compás playing, the main chords you need to worry about are A major, B flat, and sometimes C9. Now, as I mentioned in previous videos in this series, the purpose of these lessons is not to teach you the whole structure of how tientos works, and we're not going to look at falsettos or technique. We're principally interested in looking at how to play compás in tientos. In other words, we're looking at the core rhythmic idea that you keep coming back to again and again when performing. I often find that students of flamenco find it very difficult to vary their compás playing, and often they fall into habits of picking one idea and looping around it again and again with little or no variation. I'd like to tackle this issue head-on in today's lesson. In order to do this, we're going to establish one core idea and then use this as a framework to create variations, to make your compás playing more sophisticated and varied. The core idea we're going to look at, to begin with, is this. So before we start looking at variations, I want to deconstruct that basic idea. The first thing to bear in mind is this. When you're playing tientos, although you're working in 4-beat measures, it's 2 cycles of 4 beats that make one compás. The reason for this is, as you just heard, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You're moving chords every 4 beats, and it's the B flat for 4 beats and the A for 4 beats that collectively give you one cycle of compás. Let's now turn our attention to what the hands are doing to make these simple chord progressions more interesting. So let's begin with the B flat chord on the first 4 beats of the compás. We start by doing a tap with this finger on beat 1. And then we do 2 town strikes with these 2 fingers. And that's happening on the and of 1 and on 2. In other words, 1 and 2. If I put it with the chord, 1 and 2. Now, on the and of 2 and 3, we're going to do something with this hand. You're still doing downward strikes with these 2 fingers at this point, but you're going to lift out the B flat from the chord and then put it back. If you put this in to the rest of the cycle, it gives you this. 1 and 2 and 3. I'll do that one more time. 1 and 2 and 3. On beat 4, we leave these 2 fingers in place but come away from the chord with these 2. And all you're going to do is bring the second finger round to play G on the 3rd fret. And with the thumb, rest stroke. So that takes you all the way to the end of the first bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, when we get to the second bar and we move back to A, the first thing we do is we play the bass note A. And much like we did on the G earlier, it's a rest stroke with the thumb. Then on the end of beat 1, we're going to use the index finger to strike up and across the guitar strings. So far we've got 1 and. Then on beat 2, tap the body with this finger. So that's 1 and 2. Beat 3, be careful here. We're going to do a rasgueado, where we go down, 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 and then up strike. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, up. Now, where you start that within the beat isn't as important as where you end. The up strike has to be on beat 3. So it's down, 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 3. In addition to that, with the left hand, we're putting the B flat within the A chord, thus giving you a more flamenco sound. So what we're having here is 3. If I put it in the context of what you've already got, 1 and 2, 3. And finally, take the B flat away, so you've got your original A major chord, and then coming back to these two fingers again, on 4 and, you're going to go down, down. Put that together with what you've already got. 1 and 2, 3, 4 and. So if you put that together with what you played on the B flat chord, you have your 2 4-beat loop that makes one compás. If I play it all together, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And now, one time without me counting the beats. So that's the core idea we're going to be working with when playing Tientos. And I can't emphasize this enough. Before you move on to the embellishments in the next part of the video, you need to make sure you're completely comfortable with playing that in its totality and staying in compás. Before we continue with today's lesson, I'd like to do a quick shout out to let you know about my new Patreon account. For those of you who've never come across Patreon before, Patreon is a unique crowdfunding platform that allows artists like myself to offer exclusive content in exchange for monthly pledges. Your generosity allows me to continue working as a full-time musician, and in exchange you get access to some really great material, from unseen tutorial videos similar to this one, to flamenco guitar lessons. You even get access to my weekly gathering, the Midweek Guitar Meet. This weekly study group takes place on Wednesday evenings and is a great opportunity to connect with a global community of like-minded musicians who share your passion, at the same time as getting targeted feedback from myself on a regular basis. So if all this sounds interesting to you, please click the link in the description below to access my Patreon page and select an option that works for you. I look forward to meeting you, connecting with you, and together, continuing our musical journey. Now, however, let's get back to today's lesson. So having now established a core compás idea in Tientos, I want to look at a few variations. It's worth saying from the outset that when you're playing Tientos Compás, the overwhelming majority of your variations will happen on the B flat chord. You will vary the A major far less, but I will show you a nice variation for that towards the end. For now, however, let's focus exclusively on variations for the B flat passage. The first variation I'd like to show you is relatively simple. It's similar in many ways to our original core idea. However, we're going to add more variance in with the chords you're using. We're going to stay on the B flat for beats 1 and 2, but on beat 3 we're going to move to the C9 chord, voiced like so, and then on beat 4 we're going to move to this chord. More on that a little bit later. Now, let's go back to the start of the phrase where we're on the B flat. In terms of what's going on with this hand, you start in a really similar way to how you did when you were playing the core Compás idea. You tap on beat 1 and you do a down strike with these two fingers on the and of 1. 1 and. However, this is where it changes slightly. Following this, you're going to pull off from B flat to A and then come back straight away to the B flat chord. In other words, you pull off and then as you come back, you do a downward strike with these two fingers. So if I put that in context, it's going to go 1 and 2 and. I'll do that again. 1 and 2 and. From there, you're going to move across to the C9 chord. And for this one, you're going to strike across the strings of the thumb at the same time as tapping the body of the guitar with this finger. So if I put that together with what you had at the start, 1 and 2 and 3. Finally, on beat 4, you're going to come to this chord voicing, and with the thumb on this hand, you're going to strum down the strings, finishing on the B string. In other words, I don't want you to play the open E. Just come to there. Before we look at what comes next, however, I just want to talk a little bit about this chord. A lot of people often say to me, what is this chord voicing? And the answer is a little bit more nuanced than people expect. Technically speaking, this is a G minor chord. However, although that's technically speaking what the chord is, within the context of the chord progression you're playing, that's not its function. Okay? The chord's function is to act as a B flat chord, moving back to A major. And you can even see this if I play the chord. You can see it's basically a B flat chord with a G in the bass. So that's how I would think of that chord if I were you. Think of it in terms of its function rather than what, technically speaking, the chord actually is in terms of the notes. This is not a theory lesson, however, so for now let's get back to the Compás. So on beat 4, you've just played this, and to get back to the A, you're just going to walk down from C to B flat, played with the thumb on this hand. So that's basically 4 and then you're back to A and the passage you learnt earlier. 1, 2, 3, 4 and. So if I put all of that together, what you get is this. 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And now, without me saying the numbers. So there's your first variation, and you can see how by just adding in a few extra chords, you can really bring the Compás to life. In terms of getting used to varying your playing, however, a great exercise is to play the first idea I showed you, our core idea, straight in to this new variation. In other words, you play this, straight into the idea you've just learnt. And treat it like it's a loop. Let's do it together. You can play along with me. So you can see how just by adding one variation to your arsenal of ideas, you can already sound like you're improvising when playing Tientos Compás. Let's look at a few more ideas though. The first thing I would like to look at from here is looking at ways you can start the Compás. So far we've began by tapping on the body of the guitar on beat 1. I'd like to show you a really nice idea now where you actually start playing the chordal ideas from beat 1. All we're going to do is we're going to play this version of B flat. It's like the B flat chord, but you take away both the B flat and the F, so you just have this voicing that starts on D. Okay? And all you're going to do is strike the strings with the thumb and tap the body at the same time. And that's on beat 1. On the end of beat 1, you're going to put this note, E. So it's going to go 1 and. On beat 2, leave it blank. And on the end of beat 2, take this finger away and play the open D. So it's 1 and 2 and. Then on beat 3, bring this finger round to play the C. Okay? And by the way, it's worth mentioning that all of these bass notes, they're rest stroked and played with the thumb. So that's 1 and 2 and 3. And then you simply end it the way you did last time. You come to this B flat / G voicing, 4 and that drops you back. Onto the A chord. So if I loop that, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And now without me counting. So again, you're seeing just by making a small simple change, you can really start to vary your Compás. I'd like to show you one more variation that involves an interesting melody. For this one, we're going to start as we did in our original core idea. 1 and 2 and 3. Okay? So that stays exactly the same. However, when we get to the next part of it, we're going to leave this finger in place but come away with the others. So you've still got the open E, the B flat and the D. With the thumb, you're going to play the E, and as soon as you do, hammer on with the pinky onto the G sharp. Then come down with the thumb, B flat, and then the open D. So it's and then finally pull off from F sharp to B flat. And that drops you onto A. So it's basically if I play that with the whole phrase, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And now without me saying the numbers. So again, a very simple idea, but very effective for varying your Compás playing on the B flat chord. I'd like to conclude by looking at one more idea today. As I mentioned towards the start of this video, the B flat chord is where most of your variations will happen in Tientos, but you can vary the A chord as well. The idea I've already shown you is the idea that tends to be your go-to phrase in Tientos. However, there's one variation which is really, really useful. Often when musicians see a chord, they like to fill it with lots of ideas in terms of what they're doing to embellish the Compás. But often leaving space can be the most effective way to bring out the real colour of a chord. And this final idea is going to show you that. All we're going to do is this. So what's happening there? Well, it's relatively simple. Obviously you can use any of the B flat variations we previously looked at, but when you get to the A chord, we play the bass note on 1, and then we simply tap with this finger on beat 2. So it's 1, 2. Now, when we get to the next beat, we're going to do a slightly different chord, okay? We're going to put the B flat into the voicing with the third finger, and with the pinky, the G. This is the chord we want. And all we're going to do is run the thumb down each string, and then when we get to the E, we do an up strike with the index finger, and then a down strike across the chord, and mute it straight away. So it sounds like this. Thumb, 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 thumb. Index comes up, index comes down, and you mute it. Now again, much like when we looked at the resqueado earlier in this lesson, where you start this phrase is not as important as where you end. So what I want you to concentrate on is making sure that the final down strike is on beat 3. 3. 3. So if I put that in context, it's going 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you carry on as normal with whatever B flat voicing you want in the next cycle of Compás. So if I just do this as a loop with some simple ideas, you'll see how effective it can be. Now, it's worth saying this before we conclude with looking at this phrase. You don't want to overdo that one. That's the sort of thing that you put in very sparingly. Don't use it all the time. Your is the one you want to have as your go-to phrase, but this is a really nice little passage to add in if you want to add a little bit of percussive interest. The purpose of these lessons is to help you vary your Compás playing, and what I've tried to show you over this whole lesson are different ways you can do that. What I would encourage you to do is practice each idea methodically. Make sure you're really comfortable with it. And once you are, start to then try to integrate it into your playing and randomizing the order of some of these ideas we've looked at. Because this is ultimately what allows you to embellish your Compás playing. It's having lots of options that you can go to. With this in mind, I'd like to conclude the same way I always do, with a quick demonstration showing what happens when you put all this into practice and it all comes together. So here we go. Well, my friends, I'm afraid that's all we have time for today. But if you enjoyed today's video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the bell icon to receive notifications. There'll be more videos coming soon. If you're interested in studying with me on a more one-to-one basis, you can book Zoom and Skype lessons via my website. A link is in the description below. Until we next see each other, however, you stay safe, and as always, thank you for watching.